The 1950s saw an amazing output of science fiction. Asimov, Clarke, Heinlein. But perhaps the science fiction writer who may have had the best decade was Alfred Bester. You may not have heard of him, but many who love SF consider him one of the best writers ever. Today we're going to take a look at Alfred Bester's 1950s output. The Demolished Man by Alfred Bester, 1953. The Demolished Man builds a world of giant corporations and telepaths for hire. Our protagonist, Ben Reich, is the head of one of these corporations. He is in a corporate war and decides to do the unthinkable. He wants to murder the head of the other corporation. In a world of telepaths, how can you commit murder? This begins a game of cat and mouse with a police detective named Lincoln Powell, who is a telepath. Reich knows he wants to murder, and Powell is a telepath. If someone is convicted of murder, they will be demolished. We don't know what demolition is until the very end of the novel. Alfred Bester loves to write about impetuous brutes of men who follow their emotional desires. There's no moral ambiguity here. Is there a winner or a loser? Is there something more at play? The Demolished Man won the first ever Hugo Award for Best Novel in the year 1953. Alfred Bester's next novel, Tiger, Tiger, was published in the UK in 1956. A couple of years later, it was published in the US under the title The Star's My Destination. On this cover, we have a quote from Samuel R. Delany, considered by many to be the greatest single SF novel. That's high praise. Some say that this novel is in fact the beginning of the new wave of writing in science fiction. Some say it's even a precursor to cyberpunk. Once again, we have a brute of a man as a protagonist. Gully Foyle is a seemingly ordinary man who is the last known survivor of a spaceship that has been attacked in space. The Nomad is drifting and Gully Foyle is barely surviving. A spaceship comes by. It clearly recognizes the wreckage. Will Gully Foyle be rescued? No. The spaceship moves on without investigating if there are any survivors. Foyle is enraged. This becomes a novel of revenge and retribution. At one point in this unpredictable novel, Foyle's face is tattooed with the visage of a tiger. This novel propels forward like an action movie. We're both thrilled and horrified as he seeks those who passed him by. Fair warning, Foyle is misogynistic and brutal. This novel is a modern take on The Count of Monte Cristo. Foyle's imprisoned, Foyle escapes, Foyle becomes a wealthy man, and Foyle is out for revenge. Is there any hope for this amoral man? On a side note, in this novel we're introduced to jaunting, the ability to teleport yourself. Before reading this book, I was aware of Stephen King's short story, The Jaunt. It is very obvious from the content of that short story, which I do recommend. King is using jaunting as an homage to Alfred Bester. And finally, we're going to take a look at Starburst by Alfred Bester, 1958, a collection of short stories. Here's a listing of those short stories. Bester loves to look at self-absorbed, strong-willed men. There are some stories that might remind you of The Twilight Zone, with an ending that reframes everything. There are some very interesting concepts introduced. I just want to read from one of his stories. It's his second last story called The Die Hard. And I think that this reference here kind of refers to all of his heroes and their mindsets. The population of Earth has become cyborgs, part human, part robot. But there's one old man who refuses. Earth is in a first contact situation. There's an alien ambassador who has come to the planet, and the people are giving him a giant parade. The old man rants. In the old days, We would have come with fire and storm. We would have marched down strange streets with weapons on our hips and defiance in our eyes. Or, if they came first, we would have met them with strength and defiance. But not you, machine half-breeds, laboratory supermen, adjusted, reconstructed, worthless. And, as the story continues, this old man puts his cane to the alien ambassador's face. That's Alfred Bester. Alfred Bester's science fiction of the 1950s was like a match head struck and ignited. It burned brightly, and then it faded. Sometimes authors have an era of their own, of amazing output. The 1950s was that for Alfred Bester. So how do I rate these? Well, let's start with my lowest rating to my highest rating. I love the police procedural part of this book, the mind games, the chess moves. I give The Demolished Man 7 out of 10. Almost all these stories are strong stories with really interesting takes on the tropes of science fiction. I give Starburst 8 out of 10. Considered by many to be, perhaps, the best that science fiction has to offer, The Star's My Destination, I give 9 out of 10. There you have it, the best of Bester.